Hi, it's Megan. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be sharing with you 3 of my family's favorite crockpot soup recipes for the fall and winter. We eat a lot of soup. We have it at least once a week. It's a great, inexpensive meal that feeds a lot and stretches really far, and it also makes really good leftovers. So I'm going to show you a recipe for our family's favorite potato soup, as well as my daughter's favorite tomato basil parmesan soup, and a new recipe to us that's a creamy chicken stew. So let's turn the camera around and I'll show you how to make them. Okay, here's everything you need for my super easy crockpot potato soup. This is definitely a family favorite that I've been making since my husband and I were brand new, first married, and is a very inexpensive soup to make. So you are going to need some potatoes. I usually do about 6 to 8, depending on how big your crock pot is and how much soup you want to make. This is a very scalable recipe. You're also going to need an onion, and you're going to chop those up. You're going to chop those up, put them in your crock pot, and then cover that with water, however much that is. It's usually about 8 cups is how much I usually put in. And then you're going to add some chicken bouillon into it. This helps to give it lots of seasoning and lots of flavor. You can just use regular chicken broth, but you might want to up the salt content. But with this, I found that this is plenty salty and is like the perfect application for this potato soup. So you're just going to add 1 teaspoon of the chicken bouillon for every cup of water that you add to your soup. And then you're also going to add a little bit of garlic. And then after you cook that on low all day, towards the end, you're going to mash it up, cream it up however you want to, and you'll add some milk and sour cream and cheese. And then to top it, we usually add additional cheese and sour cream as well as some bacon bits. So I'll turn the camera around and show you how I get this all in the crock pot. So I'm going to start by just peeling my washed potatoes. And like I mentioned, I usually do about 6 to 8 of these, depending on the size and how much soup I want to make. And then I just kind of dice them. You can make them whatever size you want. I tend to make them a little bit bigger because I tend to cook them like all day. If you have shorter time, you can cook them smaller, so they cook a little bit faster. And then I'm just going to chop up an onion. Again, it's just going to be like a rough chop. It doesn't have to be exact or anything because I'm going to puree the soup at the end. Then I'm going to add my garlic and then my water. Today I added about 7 cups or so, and then added about 7 teaspoons of the chicken bouillon, and I just mixed it all together. I used my 6-quart crock pot and I should have used my 7-quart. So because I didn't have enough room, after it had cooked all day, I switched over to my Instant Pot, just because it's easier to clean, to blend up my soup. And then I added in about a cup of milk, and then I'm going to add in about half a cup or so of sour cream, and just use my immersion blender to blend that all together, make it nice and smooth and thick. And then I'm going to add some cheese in there as well, just to kind of top it off and blend that in until it's all melty. And then after that, I'm just going to bowl it up. And we like to top it with additional shredded cheese, sour cream, bacon bits, and green onions if we have them. Here's what you need for the crockpot tomato basil parmesan soup. You're going to need 1 cup each of diced carrots, celery, and onions. You're going to add that to your crockpot with 4 cups of chicken broth. This is just frozen homemade chicken broth. And if you're interested, I should either have out a video with how to make homemade chicken broth or one that will be coming out soon. So make sure that you are subscribed if you want to be able to see that. For spices, to the main crock pot, you're going to add a teaspoon of salt, 1 bay leaf, half a teaspoon of black pepper, and some oregano and basil. You're also going to add a few cloves of garlic. You can do fresh, or I just have the jarred stuff. And then you're also going to add 2 14.5-ounce cans of petite diced tomatoes. With the juice, you're going to add all of that to your crock pot and let that cook all day. And then towards the end of the time, you're going to add a half cup of flour, half cup to a cup of Parmesan cheese, and then either 2 cups of half and half. I don't have any of that on hand, so I'm just going to do 1 cup of cream and 1 cup of milk. So again, here I am just chopping up my veggies. I'm going to start with my onion and do some celery and carrots as well. Something that's nice about all the recipes that I'm sharing today is that a lot of them share similar ingredients. So these are great things to put on your meal plan to have kind of close to each other, because they have similar ingredients that you can use in all of the soups, but they all have very different flavor profiles, which I really like. So here I am chopping up the celery. I kind of forgot that I'm going to blend up this soup at the end, so I didn't need to cut the celery into like teeny tiny pieces. And you'll see that I kind of remembered that when I start to chop my carrots, that I chopped them in larger pieces because I'm going to puree again with my immersion blender at the end of the cooking time. During the fall and winter, I pretty much always have onions, celery, carrots, and potatoes on hand because most of my soups that me and my family like call for at least some of those ingredients. Usually carrots, celery, and onions, and then occasionally potatoes as well. There's lots of soups that have the potatoes in them. So I'm adding in my teaspoon of oregano, my tablespoon of basil. Then I'm going to add in about 2 teaspoons of salt, 1.5 teaspoons or so, and then my 2 cans of tomatoes as well as the garlic on top. And then I'm just going to cook that on low for about 8 hours. After it's about done cooking, I'm going to make a roux. I'm going to melt half a cup of butter, and then I'm going to add in a half cup of flour as well until it gets like a thick kind of paste. And then I'm going to slowly add in my milk and cream mixture, or half and half if you have that as well. I did warm it up, and that helps it mix in with the roux a lot better. So I just cooked it for a minute or 2 in the microwave and then added it to my roux mixture and just kept whisking until it got nice and thick and smooth. And then after that, I am just going to puree, or I'm going to take out my bay leaf, which I forgot to show you that I did add. And then I'm just going to puree my soup base with all the veggies until all of the chunks are gone, or however it gets to the consistency that you like. If your family likes a chunkier soup, you don't have to puree it as much. My family likes a smoother soup. And then I'm going to add the roux as well as a cup of Parmesan cheese. And then I'm just going to, again, use my immersion blender to blend it all up, make it all nice and smooth, and then just let it heat through for another, 30 minutes or so. And then your soup is ready to go. Here's what you need for the creamy chicken stew. You're going to need a half cup of chopped celery, 1 cup of chopped carrots, or the original recipe says 1 cup of baby carrots, but I'm just going to use the big carrots and chop them down. A small onion, 2 to 3 potatoes, 1 can of cream of chicken soup. I don't have any of that on hand, so I'm just using cream of celery today. For seasonings, you're going to need salt and pepper, as well as 2 to 3 teaspoons of Italian seasoning, and a 1 ounce package or 2 tablespoons of ranch powder. You're also going to need a cup of sour cream and a cup of milk, in addition to some chicken, which I already have in my crock pot. So again, just like all the other ones, I'm starting by peeling and chopping my veggies. This one only calls for a few potatoes, and then, like I mentioned before, carrots and an onion as well. With this recipe, my family liked it, but it wasn't quite the flavor profile that I was expecting it to be. So I would cut back on the Italian seasoning. It calls for like 2 to 3 tablespoons. I would probably or 2 to 3 teaspoons, sorry. And I would just probably use a teaspoon of that. And I would double the amount of ranch seasoning in this stew. So that's how I'm going to try it next time. But it was still a really good recipe, and my family all really liked it. When you're chopping your veggies, make sure that you chop them to the size that your family likes to have in their soups and stews. So I chopped my carrots kind of small, and then I chopped my potatoes to be, like a decent size, not teeny tiny, but also not giant. And then with my celery, I like to cut it usually at least once, sometimes twice, depending on the size of it, down the center of the stalk before I chop it, just because my family doesn't love celery. We like the flavor of it, but we don't like big chunks of it. So I always make sure that I cut up the celery really small whenever we're eating it like as a chunk in a soup. And so I just added my potatoes. Now I'm going to chop up my onion and add that in as well. Like I mentioned before, all of these soups and a lot of the soups I'm going to be sharing in my next video, you utilize a lot of these same ingredients. And so they're nice to buy in larger quantities, which are usually cheaper. And all of these things last for a decent amount of time in the fridge. And so you're able to utilize them and without having to have soup like 3 times in a row. So here I'm just adding my 1 cup of milk to a liquid measuring cup, as well as a cup of sour cream. I just kind of eyeballed both of those. And then I'm going to add my cream of celery soup. Again, the original recipe called for cream of chicken. I just didn't have that on hand. And then I'm going to add a teaspoon of salt and about a 1/4 teaspoon of pepper and a couple tablespoons. I think I added, like I said, 3 teaspoons of the Italian seasoning, and that was too much for us. So and then the 2 tablespoons of the ranch seasoning. And then I'm just going to pour that liquid mixture all over the rest of my veggies and pop that in the crock pot. About halfway through the cook time, I pulled out the chicken and I chopped it up because I thought for the stew it would be better if the chicken was in chunks. Lots of times I'll just pull the chicken out at the very end and shred it, but I just thought for texture-wise, the chunks would be better. So after about 4 hours on low, I did pull out the chicken and chop it up and then add it back into the soup to finish cooking the rest of the day. So I just kind of stirred it in, gave everything a good stir to make sure everything was cooking evenly, and then put it on, continued it to keep it on low for about another 3 to 4 hours. And here's what it looked like when it was all done. So those are 3 of my family's favorite soups, and make sure that you like this video and subscribe, especially if you'd like to see more content like this. I am planning on doing another video with a few more soups, as well as a video that will show you how to make homemade chicken stock, which is the base for a lot of the soups that I make. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next week with a new video. Bye.